Millionaire in a wheelchair sat alone at the wedding, until a single mom asked, "Will you be my dance partner?" Tech millionaire Daniel Rodriguez sat alone at his business partner's wedding, watching couples dance while feeling invisible in his wheelchair after the accident that changed everything 2 years ago. Then single mother Sophia approached with her 6-month-old daughter Isabella in her arms and asked the question that would change both their lives. "Will you be my dance partner?" What started as an act of kindness became the most beautiful love story, proving that real connection transcends physical limitations and that sometimes the most meaningful dances happen when two broken hearts choose to heal together. Get ready for a story that will leave you speechless and make you believe in the power of destiny. Stay with me until the very end because this story will restore your faith in humanity. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment your thoughts throughout the story. Your engagement helps us bring you more incredible narratives. Daniel Rodriguez adjusted his position in his custom wheelchair for the 3rd time in 10 minutes, watching the elegant ballroom fill with couples swaying to romantic music while he remained stationed at his assigned table like an expensive piece of furniture that no one knew quite how to interact with. At 32, he had built a tech empire worth $800 million, but all that success felt meaningless when social events reminded him of everything the car accident had taken away. "Another champagne, Mr. Rodriguez?" The waiter's overly careful tone carried the mixture of pity and discomfort that had become achingly familiar since the accident that had left him paralyzed from the waist down. "No, thank you. I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. He was desperately lonely at his business partner's wedding, surrounded by hundreds of people who saw his wheelchair before they saw him, if they saw him at all. The elegant ballroom that should have felt celebratory instead felt like a gilded prison where he was trapped between wanting to participate and knowing that most people wouldn't know how to include him. Daniel. James Morrison, the groom, approached with the slightly frantic energy of someone trying to ensure all guests were enjoying themselves. "How are you doing? Having a good time? It's a beautiful wedding, James. You and Sarah look incredibly happy. We are. Listen, I wanted to make sure you knew that the speeches are starting soon, and we've saved a spot at the front table. I'm comfortable here, thanks. But you're practically hidden in the back. Come on, you're my business partner, practically family. You should be up front where everyone can see you." Daniel suppressed the urge to point out that being visible was exactly what he was trying to avoid. 2 years after the accident, he still struggled with the stares, the whispered conversations, and the well-meaning but patronizing offers of help that made him feel like an object of charity rather than a successful businessman. "I'm fine here, James. Really. Go enjoy your wedding." After James left, Daniel found himself observing the wedding reception with the analytical detachment he brought to business problems. The dance floor was filled with couples lost in romantic moments that felt as foreign to him now as space travel. His dating life had essentially ended the day he woke up in the hospital to learn that his legs would never work again. Not that women weren't interested. His wealth ensured a steady stream of attention. But Daniel had learned to distinguish between women who saw him as a person and women who saw him as a rich man in a wheelchair who might be grateful for any attention at all. Neither category felt like the foundation for authentic connection. "Excuse me, would you mind if I sat here? The baby needs feeding, and this seems like the quietest corner." Daniel looked up to see a young woman in an elegant emerald dress holding a sleeping infant. She was beautiful in an understated way, dark hair pulled back in a simple chignon, minimal makeup that emphasized natural features, and the kind of tired eyes that suggested she was managing more responsibilities than most people her age. "Of course. Please." She settled into the chair beside him, adjusting the baby with practiced efficiency while fishing through a diaper bag that looked like it contained enough supplies for a week-long expedition. "I'm Sophia, by the way. And this is Isabella." "Daniel. And congratulations on having the most well-behaved baby at a wedding. She hasn't made a sound all evening. Don't jinx it. She's saving up all her volume for the drive home, I'm sure." Sophia began feeding Isabella with the quiet competence of a mother who had learned to manage infant care in public spaces without drawing unwanted attention. Daniel found himself genuinely curious about someone who seemed as comfortable being slightly separate from the main celebration as he was. "Are you here for the bride or groom?" "Bride. Sarah and I work together at the children's hospital. I'm a pediatric nurse." "What about you?" "Groom. James and I are business partners." "What kind of business?" "Technology. Software development for medical applications, mainly." "Really? What kind of medical applications?" Daniel was accustomed to people's eyes glazing over when he discussed his work, but Sophia leaned forward with genuine interest while continuing to attend to Isabella. "We develop communication systems that help medical teams coordinate care more effectively, particularly useful in emergency situations where seconds can mean the difference between life and death." "That sounds incredible. Do you work with pediatric units?" "Some. We have pilot programs in 3 children's hospitals testing systems that help coordinate care for critically ill children." "I work in pediatric ICU. The coordination challenges we face every day are enormous. Different specialists, multiple departments, families who need constant updates. If technology could streamline even part of that process, it would save lives." For the first time in months, Daniel found himself in conversation with someone who was engaging with his ideas rather than carefully avoiding topics that might reference mobility, independence, or physical capability. "What's the biggest communication challenge you face in pediatric ICU?" "Shift changes. When you have a critically ill child whose condition changes rapidly and you're transitioning between nursing staff, doctors, and specialists, the potential for missed information is terrifying. We've had cases where vital updates weren't communicated properly because there's no centralized system that everyone accesses. What if there was a system that automatically documented every interaction, every medication administered, every vital sign change, and made that information instantly available to anyone on the care team?" That would be revolutionary. But it would also need to be incredibly user-friendly because medical staff are already overwhelmed. Any new system has to make our jobs easier, not add another layer of complexity. Daniel felt the familiar excitement that came with identifying a problem worth solving combined with the unexpected pleasure of discussing his work with someone whose insights could actually improve what he was building. "Would you be interested in consulting on a project like that? I mean, if we were to develop a pediatric-specific communication system, we'd need input from medical professionals who understand the real-world applications." "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a conversation that could lead to collaboration on something that could help save children's lives." Sophia smiled, the first genuine, unguarded smile he'd seen from her all evening. "I'd be very interested in that conversation." As they talked, Isabella finished eating and began making the small sounds that indicated she was waking up and possibly considering whether to be content or fussy. Sophia lifted her to her shoulder, patting gently while maintaining the conversation. "She's beautiful," Daniel observed. "How old?" 6 months tomorrow. "She's my little miracle baby." "Miracle baby?" "Born 10 weeks premature. We spent the first 3 months of her life in NICU, which is actually how I became so passionate about pediatric communication systems. I lived that chaos of trying to get information about my daughter's condition from different doctors, nurses, and specialists who didn't always have complete pictures of her care. That must have been terrifying. It was the worst and most educational experience of my life. I learned that parents of critically ill children become expert advocates out of necessity, but also that medical systems aren't designed to support families who need information and coordination as much as patients do. Daniel found himself wondering about Isabella's father and Sophia's support system, but before he could formulate an appropriate way to ask, the band began playing a slow song that sent couples streaming onto the dance floor. "Would you excuse me for a moment?" Sophia asked, standing with Isabella. "She gets fussy when she's overstimulated, and I think the music might be too loud for her." Daniel watched Sophia walk toward the quieter lobby area, noting how naturally she navigated the social dynamics of attending a wedding alone with an infant. When she returned 10 minutes later, Isabella was sleeping peacefully again. Crisis averted. She just needed a few minutes away from all the excitement. You're very good at reading her cues. Single parenthood teaches you to become fluent in baby communication very quickly. The casual mention of single parenthood answered his unasked question while raising others he definitely couldn't ask during a first conversation. Is it challenging managing work and single parenthood? Everything about being a parent is challenging. But yes, doing it alone while working in a demanding field requires constant juggling. Worth every minute, though. As they continued talking, Daniel realized he was experiencing something he hadn't felt since the accident. The simple pleasure of connecting with someone who seemed genuinely interested in him as a person rather than seeing him primarily as a wealthy man in a wheelchair. The evening was progressing beautifully until Sophia asked the question that would change everything. Daniel, can I ask you something that might sound strange? Sure. Would you be my dance partner? Daniel felt his stomach drop as the one topic he'd been dreading inevitably arose. Sophia, I appreciate the gesture, but I can't. I didn't ask if you could dance. I asked if you'd be my dance partner. I don't understand the difference. The difference is that dancing isn't about moving your feet. It's about moving together, being present with someone, sharing music and moments. I can hold Isabella and move to the music, but I can't be present with someone unless they're willing to be present with me. Daniel stared at this remarkable woman who was somehow redefining dancing in ways that made inclusion possible rather than highlighting limitation. Are you asking me to dance because you feel sorry for me? I'm asking you to dance because you're the most interesting person I've talked to all evening, and because Isabella and I would both enjoy sharing a beautiful song with someone whose company we're genuinely enjoying. The honesty and warmth in her voice made it impossible to doubt her sincerity. Daniel realized she was offering him something he'd thought was lost forever, the chance to participate in a romantic moment without his disability being the primary consideration. I would be honored to be your dance partner. As Sophia approached his wheelchair with Isabella in her arms, Daniel understood that whatever happened next would either restore something beautiful to his life or remind him painfully of everything he'd lost. But looking at Sophia's gentle smile and Isabella's peaceful expression, he felt hope for the first time in 2 years that perhaps some forms of connection were possible regardless of physical limitations. Sophia positioned herself beside Daniel's wheelchair, holding Isabella close while extending her free hand toward him. The gesture was so natural, so free of pity or hesitation, that Daniel felt something tight in his chest begin to loosen for the first time in 2 years. How do we do this? He asked quietly, aware that other wedding guests were beginning to notice their unconventional preparation for dancing. We do this however feels right for both of us. There's no wrong way to share music with someone you want to be close to. Daniel took her hand, surprised by how perfectly it fit in his, and looked up at her face, which showed none of the careful concern he'd grown accustomed to seeing when people interacted with him. I used to be a good dancer, he admitted. Before. I bet you still are. Dancing isn't just about feet, Daniel. It's about rhythm, connection, presence. All the things that make you who you are. As the music began, a gentle ballad that seemed designed for moments exactly like this, Sophia began swaying softly, her movements graceful despite holding Isabella. Daniel found himself moving his upper body in response to the rhythm, his shoulders and arms following the music in ways that felt natural and unforced. See? Sophia smiled down at him. You're dancing. Around them, other couples had taken the floor, but Daniel was only aware of Sophia's warm hand in his, the gentle sound of Isabella's breathing, and the unexpected joy of moving to music with someone who made him feel whole rather than incomplete. People are staring, he observed, though he found he cared less than he'd expected. People always stare at beautiful things. A successful businessman dancing with a woman and her baby, that's worth staring at. Is that what we're doing? Dancing? That's exactly what we're doing. How does it feel? Like I remember being alive. The honesty of his response surprised them both. Sophia's eyes filled with tears that she blinked away quickly. You've been feeling dead? I've been feeling like the person I used to be died in that car accident, and I've been trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be now. And what are you discovering? That maybe I'm still someone worth knowing. As the song continued, their movement became more natural, more connected. Daniel found himself responding to Sophia's rhythm not with his legs, which would never work again, but with his entire being. The way he held her hand, the way he leaned slightly toward her, the way his eyes never left her face. Daniel, Sophia said softly, can I tell you something? Anything. You're the first person I've danced with since Isabella was born. Because of the challenges of single parenthood? Because of the challenges of trusting someone new. Isabella's father left when he found out I was pregnant. He said raising a disabled child, Isabella was diagnosed with some developmental delays, wasn't the life he'd signed up for. Daniel felt anger flash through him at the cruelty of abandoning a woman and child because of medical challenges. His loss was immeasurable. I thought so too. But it taught me something important about the difference between people who see obstacles and people who see possibilities. Which am I? You're someone who built a company that saves lives while navigating challenges that would have destroyed weaker people. You're definitely someone who sees possibilities. As the song drew to a close, neither of them wanted to break the connection they discovered. The dance had become something more than movement to music. It had become a declaration that intimacy and joy were possible regardless of physical circumstances. Thank you, Daniel said as the music ended. For what? For showing me that I can still be someone a remarkable woman wants to dance with. Daniel, you were always someone worth dancing with. You just needed someone who was paying attention to the right things. As they prepared to return to their table, James Morrison approached with an expression that mixed surprise and admiration. Daniel, I had no idea you were such a good dancer. Neither did I until tonight. Sophia, right? I don't think we've met properly. I'm James, the groom. Congratulations on a beautiful wedding. Your wife looks radiant. She is. And thank you for making sure Daniel didn't spend the evening sitting alone. That was very kind. Daniel felt the familiar irritation that came when people treated his social interactions as charity rather than genuine connection. Actually, James, Sophia and I were discussing a potential business collaboration. She's a pediatric nurse with insights that could revolutionize our medical communication systems. Really? That's fantastic. We should definitely talk more about that. As James moved away to attend to other guests, Sophia looked at Daniel with appreciation. Thank you for framing our conversation as business rather than charity. It wasn't charity. Your insights about pediatric ICU communication challenges were genuinely valuable. But you also didn't want your friend thinking I was being nice to you out of pity. Was that obvious? Only because I've seen that look before. Isabella's delays mean we encounter a lot of well-meaning people who think interacting with us is an act of service rather than genuine interest. Daniel felt a deep recognition of shared experience. It's exhausting, isn't it? Being seen as someone who needs help rather than someone who has something to offer. Exactly. Which is why tonight has been so refreshing. You've talked to me like I'm an intelligent professional with valuable insights, and I've talked to you like you're an interesting man whose company I enjoy. Is that what we've been doing? That's exactly what we've been doing. And Daniel? Yes. I'd like to continue doing it. Continuing what? Getting to know each other. Not as a disabled businessman and a single mother who need each other's help, but as two people who might genuinely enjoy building something together. What kind of something? I don't know yet. Maybe a professional collaboration on medical technology. Maybe a friendship based on mutual respect and shared interests. Maybe something more if we both feel it naturally developing. Daniel studied her face, looking for signs of the pity or obligation that had characterized most of his interactions with women since the accident. Instead, he saw genuine interest, intelligence, and the kind of openness that suggested she was as curious about him as he was about her. "I'd like that very much. Good. Because I should probably warn you that Isabella and I are a package deal, and she's going to expect you to be just as charming when she's awake and demanding attention. I think I can handle that challenge. We'll see. She's got very high standards for the men in our lives." As the evening continued, Daniel found himself experiencing the wedding reception in completely new ways. Instead of feeling isolated and invisible, he felt included and engaged. Sophia introduced him to her colleagues from the hospital, who treated him as Daniel rather than as the man in the wheelchair. Their conversations ranged from medical technology to child development to the challenges and joys of building meaningful work around helping others. "You know," Sophia said as they prepared to leave the reception, "I meant what I said about consulting on your pediatric communication system. And I meant my offer. Would you be available for a meeting next week to discuss the project more formally?" "I would. But Daniel?" "Yes. I want to be clear about something. I'm interested in working with you because I think we could create something that helps children and families. I'm interested in getting to know you because I think you're fascinating and kind and much more fun to talk to than anyone else I've met in months." Those are separate interests? They're completely separate interests that happen to involve the same remarkable person. As Daniel watched Sophia gather Isabella and her supplies with practiced efficiency, he realized that the evening had transformed him from a man who felt defined by his limitations into someone who felt excited about possibilities he hadn't considered since the accident. "Sophia, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Are you ready to trust someone new? After what Isabella's father put you through, I'm ready to get to know someone who sees challenges as problems to solve rather than reasons to give up. Someone who understands that the best things in life require patience, creativity, and commitment. And you think I might be that someone? I think tonight proved you definitely are." As they left the wedding reception together, Daniel wheeling alongside Sophia, who carried sleeping Isabella, both understood that their dance had been the beginning of something neither had expected but both were brave enough to explore. 3 weeks after the wedding, Daniel sat in his office conference room reviewing pediatric communication protocols with an enthusiasm he hadn't felt for any project since before the accident. Sophia arrived precisely on time, carrying Isabella in a professional-looking baby carrier that allowed her to maintain mobility while keeping her daughter close. "I hope it's okay that I brought Isabella. My babysitter canceled last minute, and I didn't want to reschedule our meeting again." "It's more than okay. I've been looking forward to seeing both of you." The admission surprised him with its honesty. Over the past 3 weeks, he'd found himself thinking about Sophia and Isabella more than any potential business partner should occupy his thoughts. How has she been sleeping? Better, thankfully, though she's discovered the joy of trying to grab everything within reach, which makes feeding time an adventure. As if summoned by the mention of her name, Isabella opened her eyes and immediately focused on Daniel with the intense curiosity that 6-month-olds brought to studying new faces. "Hi, beautiful girl," Daniel said softly, and Isabella responded with a smile that made his heart do something complicated. "She likes you," Sophia observed. "She doesn't smile at everyone." "I'm honored. Now, shall we revolutionize pediatric care communication?" For the next hour, Sophia provided insights that transformed Daniel's understanding of how medical technology could actually serve families in crisis. Her suggestions were practical, compassionate, and brilliant. The current systems focus on medical staff communication, but families are completely left out of the information loop, she explained while Isabella played contentedly with a set of colorful rings. Parents of critically ill children become expert advocates, but they're working with incomplete information. What if we designed a system that included family access? Real-time updates on their child's condition, medication schedules, test results, care plans. That would be revolutionary. but it would also need to be carefully managed. Medical information needs to be presented in ways that inform families without causing panic. How do we balance transparency with emotional support? By including emotional support as part of the communication system. Not just medical updates, but resources for families, explanations of procedures, connections to other families going through similar experiences. Daniel found himself taking notes faster than he had in years, energized by ideas that could transform not just medical communication but family experience during medical crises. Sophia, what you're describing isn't just a communication system. It's a comprehensive family support platform. Exactly, because medical crises affect entire families, not just patients. This could help thousands of families. Hundreds of thousands if we design it right. As they worked, Isabella provided a surprisingly effective demonstration of their target user experience. When she became fussy, Sophia seamlessly attended to her needs while continuing their conversation. When Isabella needed feeding, Sophia managed the process with practiced efficiency that didn't interrupt their collaboration. "You're remarkably good at multitasking," Daniel observed. "Single parenthood teaches you to integrate all aspects of your life. I can't separate being Isabella's mother from being a pediatric nurse or a potential business partner. They're all part of who I am. And that integration makes you more effective at all three roles." Usually, though some people find it unprofessional when I bring Isabella to meetings. Those people are idiots. Isabella's presence makes this conversation more authentic because we're designing systems for real families, not theoretical ones. Sophia looked at him with an expression that mixed gratitude and something deeper. "Daniel, can I tell you something?" "Always." Most business meetings I've attended, people tolerate Isabella at best. You're the first person who seems to genuinely appreciate that she's part of what I bring to professional collaborations. She's part of your expertise. You understand pediatric family dynamics from both professional and personal perspectives. That's incredibly valuable. It's also incredibly exhausting sometimes. What's the most challenging part? The isolation. Single parenthood combined with demanding work means I rarely have time for adult relationships that aren't related to Isabella's care or my job responsibilities. Is that why you approached me at the wedding? Because you were lonely? I approached you because you looked as isolated as I felt, and because there was something about the way you were observing everyone that suggested you were thinking interesting thoughts. What kind of interesting thoughts? The kind that come from someone who notices things other people miss. Someone who understands what it feels like to be on the outside of social situations through no fault of their own. Daniel felt the recognition that came from being understood by someone who shared similar experiences with being marginalized. Is that what we were? Two outsiders recognizing each other. Initially. But then we started talking, and I realized you weren't just someone who understood isolation. You were someone whose company I genuinely enjoyed. And now I'm looking forward to building something meaningful together, professionally and personally. What does personally mean in this context? It means I'd like to spend time with you outside of business meetings. It means Isabella and I would enjoy having dinner with you, or taking walks, or just talking about things that have nothing to do with pediatric communication systems. Like a friendship? Like whatever develops naturally between two people who enjoy each other's company and are open to seeing where that leads. Daniel felt hope and terror in equal measure. The possibility of personal connection with Sophia was everything he'd wanted and everything he'd been afraid to believe was possible. "Sophia, I need to be honest with you about something." "What?" "I haven't attempted a personal relationship since the accident. I'm not sure I know how to be a good friend to someone, let alone anything more than that." "What makes you think you need to know how? Isn't the point of getting to know someone that you figure it out together?" "What if my limitations make friendship too complicated? What if my responsibilities as a single mother make friendship too complicated? What if Isabella's developmental delays make our family dynamics too complicated? What if any of the dozen challenges we're both managing make everything too complicated? I see your point. My point is that life is complicated for everyone. The question isn't whether complications exist, it's whether two people care enough about each other to work through complications together. Before Daniel could respond, Isabella began making the sounds that indicated she was becoming hungry and potentially fussy. I should probably take her home for lunch and a nap, Sophia said apologetically. Before you go, can I ask you something? Of course. Would you and Isabella like to have dinner with me tomorrow night? Not a business meeting, just spending time together. I'd like that very much. But I should warn you that dinner with Isabella means early timing, possible interruptions, and a diaper bag that takes up significant space. My penthouse has a beautiful view, a kitchen designed for accessibility, and enough space for all the baby equipment we could need. Would 7 o'clock work? 7 would be perfect. As Sophia prepared to leave, Isabella reached toward Daniel with the determination of a child who had decided he was interesting enough to investigate further. I think she wants to say goodbye to you, Sophia laughed. Daniel moved his wheelchair closer, and Isabella immediately grabbed his finger with the strong grip that babies use to explore their world. Goodbye, beautiful girl. I'll see you tomorrow. Isabella smiled and babbled something that sounded remarkably like agreement. She's definitely looking forward to tomorrow, Sophia interpreted. And so am I. After they left, Daniel remained in his office thinking about how completely his priorities had shifted in 3 weeks. The business collaboration with Sophia was already producing ideas that could transform pediatric family support. But more importantly, the personal connection with Sophia and Isabella was helping him rediscover parts of himself he'd thought were lost forever. For the first time since the accident, he was excited about the future rather than just managing the present. The question was whether he could build something lasting with a woman whose strength and independence matched his own, while also becoming someone worthy of the trust of a 6-month-old girl who saw possibilities rather than limitations. Daniel's penthouse had been transformed for the evening, not with expensive decorations or elaborate preparations, but with thoughtful accommodations that made the space welcoming for a woman with a baby. A high chair had been positioned at the dining table, baby-proofing covers protected sharp corners, and soft lighting created an atmosphere that felt intimate without being presumptuous. This is beautiful, Sophia said as she entered with Isabella, who immediately began looking around with the wide-eyed curiosity she brought to new environments. And so thoughtfully arranged for Isabella. I may have consulted several parenting websites about baby-friendly dinner parties, Daniel admitted. I wanted to make sure she'd be comfortable here. The fact that you researched how to accommodate her needs tells me everything I need to know about the kind of person you are. As they settled into the evening, Daniel found himself marveling at how naturally Sophia navigated the logistics of feeding Isabella while maintaining adult conversation. She had clearly mastered the art of integration that made single parenthood possible in social situations. Can I ask you something I've been wondering about? Daniel said as they shared the meal he'd had catered from a family-friendly restaurant. Sure. How do you manage everything? Single parenthood, demanding job, now this business collaboration with me. When do you sleep? I don't sleep much, Sophia laughed. But I also learned that perfectionism is the enemy of good parenting. Isabella doesn't need a perfect mother, she needs a present one. So I focus on showing up for the moments that matter. What moments matter most? The quiet ones. When she's learning something new, or when she needs comfort, or when she's just discovering the world around her. Those moments can't be scheduled or postponed, so everything else has to be flexible. That sounds like remarkable wisdom for someone so young. I'm 28, not 18. And becoming a parent ages you quickly, but in good ways. You learn what's actually important versus what just feels urgent. Daniel watched Sophia cut food into tiny pieces for Isabella, who was attempting to feed herself with more enthusiasm than accuracy. Can I ask about Isabella's father? I don't want to pry, but understanding your situation helps me understand what you might need from people in your life. You can ask. It's not a secret, just painful sometimes. She paused to help Isabella with a particularly challenging piece of food. We were together for 2 years. I thought we were building toward marriage and family. When I got pregnant, he was initially excited. What changed? The diagnosis. Isabella was born with some developmental delays. Nothing severe, but enough to require extra attention, therapy, specialized care. He said he hadn't signed up to raise a special needs child. He left because she needed more support? He left because he saw her challenges as limitations rather than just different ways of experiencing the world. He couldn't imagine loving someone whose development wouldn't match his expectations. Daniel felt familiar anger at the cruelty of abandoning someone because their needs didn't align with personal convenience. His loss was immeasurable. I believe that. But his choice also taught me something important about the difference between people who see obstacles and people who see possibilities. What did Isabella's diagnosis actually involve? Mild cerebral palsy affecting her fine motor development and some delayed speech milestones. With therapy and support, she'll likely develop typically in most areas. But she'll always need to work harder for things that come easily to other children. And you saw that as possibility rather than limitation? I saw that as Isabella being Isabella. She's brilliant, curious, affectionate, and determined. The fact that she experiences the world differently doesn't diminish any of those qualities. Daniel felt deep recognition of Sophia's perspective on adapting to different abilities rather than seeing them as deficiencies. That's exactly how I hope people see my situation. Different capabilities, not missing capabilities. Is that how you see yourself? The question forced Daniel to examine feelings he'd been avoiding for 2 years. I'm learning to. Some days I focus on everything I can still do. Other days I get overwhelmed by everything that's changed. What changed the most? The assumption that other people see me as whole. Before the accident, I took for granted that people would interact with me based on my ideas, my personality, my professional capabilities. Now I'm never sure whether people are seeing Daniel who happens to use a wheelchair or a wheelchair user who happens to be Daniel. Which do you think I see? Honestly, you're the first person since the accident who seems to see Daniel first. That's part of why I'm so comfortable with you. But because Isabella and I see someone whose company we genuinely enjoy, whose ideas excite us, and whose presence makes us both happy. As if responding to her name, Isabella looked up from her food and babbled something that sounded remarkably like agreement, causing both adults to laugh. She's very opinionated for someone who can't technically talk yet, Daniel observed. She communicates plenty. Watch this. Sophia looked at Isabella and asked, "Do you like Daniel?" Isabella immediately smiled and reached toward Daniel with both arms extended. "I think that's a yes," Daniel said, moving his wheelchair closer so Isabella could touch his hand. "She's an excellent judge of character. I trust her instincts about people more than my own sometimes." "What do your instincts tell you about me?" "That you're someone worth investing time and energy in getting to know better. That you're kind, intelligent, and much stronger than you probably give yourself credit for." "And what do they tell you about us?" "About the possibility of building something together." Sophia was quiet for a moment, helping Isabella with her sippy cup while considering how to answer honestly. "They tell me that I haven't felt this hopeful about personal connection in a very long time. That I look forward to seeing you in ways that have nothing to do with business collaboration." "What does that mean practically?" "It means I'd like to spend more time together. Not just working on the pediatric communication system, but getting to know each other as people who might want to build something lasting." "What would lasting look like with our respective circumstances?" "I don't know yet. But I know I'd like to find out." As the evening progressed, Isabella became increasingly tired and fussy despite her obvious enjoyment of Daniel's company. Sophia began the familiar routine of preparing to manage an overtired baby's transition to bedtime. "I should probably get her home before she has a complete meltdown," she said apologetically. Before you go, can I tell you something? Of course. Tonight has been the best evening I've had since before the accident. Not because of the food or the setting, but because of the company. Both of you. Isabella's pretty great company, isn't she? She is. But Sophia, I was specifically talking about you. About how comfortable you make me feel, how interested you are in my thoughts, how naturally you include me in moments that matter. Daniel, I know it's early to be having this conversation, but I need you to know that my feelings about you are developing into something more than professional collaboration or even friendship. What kind of something? The kind where I think about you when you're not here, where I plan parts of my day around the possibility of seeing you, where I imagine what it might be like to be part of your and Isabella's life in permanent ways. Sophia studied his face, looking for signs of the desperation or neediness that sometimes motivated men to move quickly in relationships with single mothers. What do you see when you imagine being part of our life permanently? I see partnership. Someone who helps with Isabella's care not because I'm trying to win your affection, but because I genuinely love her. Someone who supports your career goals while building something meaningful together professionally. Someone who chooses both of you every day, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. And what would you need from us? Patience while I figure out how to be a good partner to someone with responsibilities I've never shared. Trust that my feelings are about who you are, not about gratitude for being accepted despite my disability. Time to prove that I'm someone worth building a life with. Sophia reached across the table and took his hand, her expression serious but warm. Daniel, I think we should take this one day at a time and see what develops naturally. Is that a yes to exploring possibilities? That's a yes to believing that what we're building together is worth the investment of time, energy, and emotional risk. As Sophia gathered Isabella and prepared to leave, Daniel realized that his life was transforming in ways he'd never imagined possible. The evening had revealed that genuine partnership was achievable despite physical limitations and family complications. The question was whether he could prove himself worthy of the trust that Sophia and Isabella were offering, and whether love could grow strong enough to overcome all the practical challenges their relationship would face. 2 months into their relationship, Daniel discovered that loving Sophia and Isabella meant confronting not just his own insecurities, but the world's assumptions about disability, single motherhood, and unconventional families. The challenge came during what should have been a simple outing to the Children's Museum on a Saturday afternoon. Are you sure you want to come with us? Sophia asked as they prepared to leave his penthouse. Isabella gets very excited at the museum, which means lots of chasing after her and navigating crowds of families. I'm sure. I want to be part of the activities you both enjoy, not just the quiet dinners at home. It's not about your capabilities, Daniel. It's about other people's reactions. Sometimes when we're out together as a family, people stare or make assumptions. What kind of assumptions? That you're my patient instead of my boyfriend. That I'm your caregiver instead of your partner. That Isabella is lucky to have any father figure, even one with limitations. The casual cruelty of these assumptions made Daniel's stomach clench, but also strengthened his resolve to claim his place as Sophia and Isabella's partner publicly as well as privately. Then let's show them what we actually are. The Children's Museum was crowded with families enjoying weekend activities, and Daniel immediately noticed the sideways glances that followed their unconventional family unit. But he also noticed something more important: Isabella's absolute delight at having him accompany them to one of her favorite places. Look. Isabella had recently begun calling Daniel "Tch," a development that made his heart race every time it happened. I see, sweetheart. Do you want to explore the water table? As they navigated the museum's interactive exhibits, Daniel found creative ways to participate in activities designed for mobile parents. At the water table, he helped Isabella pour and measure while Sophia managed the logistics of keeping her dry. In the music room, he played instruments with her while Sophia took photos of their collaboration. You're really good at this, Sophia observed as they settled in the quiet reading corner where Isabella could rest between high-energy activities. Good at what? Adapting to her world instead of expecting her to adapt to yours. A lot of adults try to direct children's play instead of following their lead. She's the expert on what's fun for Isabella. I'm just here to support whatever makes her happy. That's exactly the right approach. And Daniel? Yes. She's not the only one who's happy you're here. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by another family, parents with 2 young children who had been watching their interactions with obvious curiosity. Excuse me, the woman approached with the kind of smile that suggested well-meaning but potentially problematic conversation. I hope you don't mind me saying, but it's so wonderful to see someone like you doing family activities. Someone like me? Daniel's voice remained pleasant despite the warning signals going off in his mind. You know, someone with your challenges. It must be so inspiring for your wife to have such a positive attitude about everything. Sophia stepped closer to Daniel, her protective instincts activated by the woman's patronizing tone. Actually, I'm inspired by Daniel because he's an incredible partner and father, not because of his attitude about disability. Oh, he's the father? That's even more wonderful. Isabella is so lucky to have someone willing to step up despite the difficulties. The only difficulty here, Daniel said calmly, is the assumption that my using a wheelchair somehow makes me less capable of loving and caring for my family. The woman's face flushed as she realized her comments had crossed boundaries she hadn't intended to breach. I didn't mean to offend. I just think it's nice when people overcome their limitations to help others. Daniel isn't overcoming limitations to help us, Sophia replied firmly. He's choosing to love us because we're worth loving, and we're choosing to love him for the same reason. As the woman retreated with her children, Isabella looked up from the book she'd been examining and reached for Daniel with the casual affection that had become natural between them. Dada, read. Of course, sweetheart. What book would you like? As Daniel settled Isabella on his lap and began reading about friendly dinosaurs, Sophia watched the easy intimacy between them with a mixture of love and fierce protectiveness. Does that happen often? Daniel asked quietly while Isabella turned pages with determined concentration. More than I'd like. People see us as an inspiring story instead of just a family trying to enjoy our Saturday. How do you usually handle it? By focusing on what actually matters, Isabella's happiness and our connection as a family. But I have to admit, having you respond so calmly made it easier. I've learned that getting angry at ignorance just confirms people's assumptions that disability makes life tragic. Responding with dignity tends to be more educational. Is that what you were doing? Educating her? I was protecting us. All 3 of us. By making it clear that our family is based on love and choice, not charity or inspiration. As they continued their museum visit, Daniel noticed that Isabella's developmental delays required patience and creativity from both adults, but also brought unexpected joys. She examined everything with intense curiosity, engaged with other children through nonverbal communication that transcended language barriers, and approached each new experience with fearless enthusiasm. She's remarkable, Daniel said as they watched Isabella successfully navigate a climbing structure designed for children twice her age. She is. But she's also just Isabella being Isabella. I worry sometimes that people will always see her challenges before they see her strengths. The people who matter will see her strengths first. The people who see challenges first aren't worth worrying about. Is that what you've learned about your own situation? That's what you taught me about my own situation. Before I met you, I was focused on managing other people's perceptions instead of living authentically. And now I'm focused on being the best partner and father I can be, and trusting that the right people will see that clearly. Their afternoon was progressing beautifully until another challenging interaction occurred near the museum's exit. Isabella was becoming tired and slightly fussy when an older man approached with the officious manner of someone about to offer unsolicited advice. Miss, You might want to know that the young man there has been talking to your daughter like he knows her. I just wanted to make sure everything was appropriate." Sophia felt anger flash through her at the implication that Daniel posed some kind of threat to Isabella. "That young man is my boyfriend and Isabella's father. He's been talking to her like he knows her because he does know her." "Oh, I just thought. I didn't realize." "Are you sure he's safe with children?" "I'm absolutely sure he's safe with children, because I've watched him love and care for my daughter every day for months." "Your concern is noted but completely unnecessary." Daniel placed a calming hand on Sophia's arm, recognizing that her protective anger was escalating the situation. "Sir, I understand your concern for child safety, but I can assure you that Isabella is my daughter and she's perfectly safe with me. I didn't mean to overstep. It's just unusual to see." "To see what? A man in a wheelchair caring for a child? A family that doesn't look like your expectations." The man retreated without finishing his sentence, leaving Daniel, Sophia, and Isabella to process another encounter with prejudice disguised as concern. "I'm sorry," Sophia said as they left the museum. "I shouldn't have gotten so defensive. You were protecting our family. That's exactly what partners do for each other. But it's exhausting having to constantly defend our right to exist as we are." "It is exhausting. But Sophia, look what we accomplished today despite those interactions." "What did we accomplish?" "We had a beautiful afternoon as a family. Isabella learned new things, played with other children, and experienced the joy of having both her parents with her during an adventure. The ignorant comments from strangers don't diminish any of that." As they drove home with Isabella sleeping contentedly in her car seat, Sophia reflected on how Daniel had handled the day's challenges with grace while never compromising their family's dignity. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think we're strong enough to handle the outside world's reactions to our relationship long term?" "I think we're strong enough to handle anything as long as we keep supporting each other and prioritizing what actually matters." "What actually matters?" "That Isabella is loved, safe, and thriving. That we're building something beautiful together despite external pressures. That we choose each other every day, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it." "Even when it's hard?" "Especially when it's hard." 1 year later, the hospital waiting room had become an all too familiar space for Daniel and Sophia, but this time the circumstances were different. Instead of sitting beside Isabella's bedside during another routine therapy session, they were waiting for news that would determine their family's future in ways that had nothing to do with medical appointments. "Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Vasquez, the judge will see you now," the court clerk announced, using the formal names that legal proceedings required but that felt strange after months of simply being Daniel, Sophia, and Isabella to each other. Daniel straightened his tie and checked that his wheelchair was positioned properly while Sophia gathered the diaper bag that had become their constant companion during the adoption proceedings. Isabella, now 18 months old and walking with the determined wobble of a toddler who refused to let developmental delays slow her down, reached for Daniel's hand with the trust of a child who had never known him as anything other than Daddy. "Dada, go," she asked in the clear, purposeful words that had emerged over the past few months with the help of speech therapy and the patient encouragement of two parents who celebrated every milestone. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to see a very important lady who's going to make our family official." The family court judge who had been reviewing Daniel's petition to legally adopt Isabella was known for thorough evaluations and careful consideration of children's best interests. Over the past 6 months, social workers had conducted home visits, interviewed character references, and observed Daniel's interactions with Isabella to determine whether the adoption should be approved. "Your Honor," Daniel began when invited to address the court, 18 months ago, I thought my life was defined by limitations. I thought that using a wheelchair meant I couldn't be the kind of father a child deserved, couldn't provide the active, engaged parenting that children need. What changed your perspective?" Judge Patricia Williams asked with the kindness that had made her legendary among families navigating the adoption system. Isabella changed my perspective. Not because she has special needs that somehow matched my limitations, but because she taught me that love and commitment matter more than physical capabilities. Can you elaborate on what your relationship with Isabella looks like day to day? I feed her breakfast every morning, usually while she tries to share her food with me whether I want it or not. I take her to speech therapy twice a week, where I've learned basic sign language so we can communicate more effectively. I read her bedtime stories every night, and I've gotten surprisingly good at doing character voices for all her favorite books. And how does Isabella respond to your care? Sophia stood to address the court, holding Isabella, who immediately reached for Daniel with the automatic affection that had developed over months of daily caregiving. Your Honor, Isabella doesn't see limitations when she looks at Daniel. She sees the person who comforts her when she's scared, who celebrates her achievements, who adapts activities so she can participate fully in everything we do as a family. Ms. Vasquez, you've been a single mother for most of Isabella's life. Why is it important to you that Mr. Rodriguez adopt her legally? Because he's already her father in every way that matters. Legal adoption just makes permanent what has been true for months, that Daniel is committed to Isabella for life, regardless of what happens between us romantically. And what is happening between you romantically? Sophia and Daniel exchanged glances, sharing a private smile that spoke to months of building something beautiful together despite external pressures and internal fears. We're engaged, Your Honor. But more importantly, we're partners in raising Isabella to be confident, loved, and supported in reaching her full potential. Judge Williams reviewed the social worker reports, medical evaluations, and character references that painted a picture of an unconventional family that was thriving because of, not despite, its unique circumstances. Mr. Rodriguez, adopting a child with special needs requires long-term commitment to therapies, medical appointments, and advocacy that will continue throughout Isabella's childhood and possibly into adulthood. Are you prepared for those responsibilities? Your Honor, I'm not adopting Isabella because of her special needs or despite them. I'm adopting her because she's my daughter and I love her completely. Whether that means speech therapy, physical therapy, or advocating for her educational needs, I'm committed to supporting her in whatever way she requires. Isabella, can you tell me about Daniel? The judge asked, addressing the toddler directly with the respect she showed all children in her courtroom. Dada, Isabella announced proudly, then launched into an enthusiastic monologue that combined recognizable words with elaborate gestures that conveyed meaning beyond her vocabulary. Dada read, Dada park, Dada love. I think that's a pretty clear endorsement, Judge Williams observed with a smile. Based on my review of this case, including social worker evaluations, medical recommendations, and my observation of this family's dynamics, I'm approving the adoption petition. The words that followed became a blur of legal terminology that formalized what had been emotionally true for months. Daniel was officially Isabella's father, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Congratulations to the Rodriguez family, Judge Williams concluded. May you continue to grow in love and strength together. As they left the courthouse with adoption papers that made their family legally permanent, Isabella celebrated by attempting to walk faster than her developing coordination could manage, requiring both parents to provide gentle guidance while she navigated the excitement of an important day she didn't fully understand but clearly sensed was special. How does it feel to be officially a father? Sophia asked as they settled into their car for the drive home. It feels exactly like it's felt for months, like the most important job I've ever had and the greatest privilege I've ever been given. And how does it feel to know that Isabella is legally your daughter forever, regardless of what happens between us? It feels like security I didn't know I needed. She's my daughter, I'm her father, and nothing can change that now. 6 months later, their wedding took place in the same ballroom where they had first danced, with Isabella serving as flower girl in a dress that matched Sophia's elegant gown. But the most beautiful moment wasn't the exchange of vows or the celebration afterward. It was watching Isabella toddle confidently down the aisle, scattering rose petals with scientific precision while calling Mama, Dada, to ensure her parents were properly attending to her important ceremonial duties. Do you take this woman to be your wife, to love and cherish through all of life's adventures? The officiant asked. I do, Daniel replied, never taking his eyes off Sophia, who looked radiant in ways that transcended physical beauty. Do you take this man to be your husband, to build a life together based on love, partnership, and family? I do. Her voice was steady, confident in ways that came from choosing love with complete knowledge of its challenges and rewards. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The kiss that followed was witnessed by Isabella, who applauded with the enthusiasm of a toddler who understood that Mama and Dada were officially committed to the family structure she had always assumed was permanent. 2 years later, as they prepared for the arrival of their second child, a pregnancy that had surprised and delighted them both, Daniel reflected on how completely his understanding of possibility had been transformed by love. Are you nervous about having a newborn? Sophia asked as they assembled the crib that would soon hold their son. I'm nervous about sleep deprivation and remembering how to change diapers efficiently. But I'm not nervous about loving another child or being a good father to him. What changed? Isabella taught me that being a parent isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, committed, and willing to grow alongside your children. And what did I teach you? You taught me that love doesn't require fixing people or overcoming limitations. It requires seeing people clearly and choosing them completely. Even when things are hard? Especially when things are hard. As they finished preparing the nursery, Isabella toddled in wearing her favorite dress and carrying the stuffed elephant that had been her constant companion since infancy. Baby, she asked, pointing to the crib with the curiosity that had driven her exploration of the world since birth. Yes, sweetheart. Your baby brother will sleep here when he arrives. Brother love Isabella? Your brother will love you very much. And you'll be the best big sister in the world. Isabella considered this information with the seriousness she brought to all important concepts, then rendered her verdict with characteristic certainty. Isabella loved brother too. As Daniel and Sophia exchanged glances over their daughter's head, both understood that their family had been built through courage, patience, and the willingness to believe that love could transcend any limitation society might impose on their unconventional circumstances. The dance that had begun at a wedding reception had become a marriage that proved daily that connection, commitment, and joy were possible regardless of physical circumstances or family complications. Their love story had become proof that the most beautiful families are often the ones that form when people are brave enough to see possibilities where others see obstacles, and strong enough to build something lasting together despite any challenges they might face.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.